Hello and welcome back to Bourbon Bikes and Business with Hank and Blaze. Blaze, good to see you. How you doing today, bud?
I'm great. How you doing today, Hank?
Good. I'm hanging in there, just dealing with some puppy drama over here, trying to get him to go to the bathroom so we can film a podcast. So, but apparently when you tell a puppy to go to the bathroom, he doesn't always do it on command. So,
I'm just happy it's warm out. Spring is almost here.
Yeah.
I got my spring shirt on, my latest spring shirt.
That's nice. I think I'm going to go for a nice ride tomorrow. So I did a nice run yesterday, biked the day before. Today's day off. Tomorrow, get back to it.
Cool.
Yeah. So, today we have an exciting episode for everyone. Today, coming off Jake and Andy last week, which was an incredible show.
Yeah.
Today we get back to our adventure in the Smokies, and we're going to be doing part 2, and this is where things get really interesting. So you're definitely going to want to tune in and pay attention and hang out for the entire show today, because it's going to be a hoot. So before we get into it, as always, we remind our watcher in the video. It helps build up the channel. And looks like more people are tuning in, so that's good. Thank you all, everyone out there who's helping out. Blaze, before we get into it, what are you drinking today?
I just want to add 2 things. I was like, we're looking for guests to come on the show. So if you'd like to come on and chat about bourbon, bikes, or small business, reach out to us. And also subscribe, and leave us some messages on what you'd like to see as far as content goes. So today, here's what I got. I went back to what I had before, the
Knob Rye?
The Knob Rye, spicy, 100 proof, all good. How about you?
Very good. Today, I brought out the 1792 Bottled and Bond Single Barrel. I've had this for quite a while. It's been sitting at this about half mark for a while, so I thought I'd dip back into it.
There's a couple versions of that, right?
Yeah, there are.
I think I've had 1 or 2. Yep.
But we'll have a little of that today. And then...
how's the pot doing?
By the way, the next episode, I think, is going to be killer.
Yeah.
And I think you're in for a treat. I didn't get a text back from you that you're in, I don't think. But
I'm in.
You're in for this one. Okay, so next week, not to do an early preview or anything, but next week, the Poor Pappies will be ready officially tonight, actually. But we'll wait till next week to film it. We'll give it another week of fermenting.
Cool.
And so the Poor Pappies will be ready. And what we're going to do is Blaze is going to come over to the house. Maybe we'll have a special guest over to the house as well. And we're going to do a blind taste with that, the Pappy 10, technically Old Van Winkle 10, Old Rip Van Winkle. We're going to have, what was the other one I said? We're going to have the CYPB. And the Antique 107. And we're going to do a blind taste with all those and see which ones we prefer. I have thought about putting in like a really crappy one just to see if automatically, it would be the bullshit test kind of a thing. But I'm not going to waste our time with that. We're going to
just do an average pour in there and just see how it compares.
We could do we could do a Buffalo Trace Kosher maybe. Along the same lines.
Yeah.
So we'll think about that. But we're going to do this blind taste next week with the Poor Pappies. It should be really interesting, and we're going to be able to taste some really good bourbon. So can't wait. That's next week's show. So let's dive into it here. Let's cheers real quickly. Cheers, Blaze. Welcome to the show.
Cheers. Hey, you're going to have to jog my memory on this trip. I have a terrible memory. The older I get, the more I forget. So, but I'll let you guide us through today and see how we go.
All right. So, today's show, leaving from part 1, we were coming out of lunch, coming out of the Big Creek.
In the holler,
In the holler, the Big Creek cabin, whatever it was. Climbed out of there. We were on beautiful paved roads under a nice canopy shielding us from the sun. Everything was going well. We were feeling relatively fresh. We dived down into this big hill, which is basically where we left the part 1 video. And that's also happens to be where the video that we have ends. I don't remember quite why. At a certain point, I remember why the video ended. But initially, I don't remember why it ended. So
we don't have any other video for part 2,
no,
is what you're saying?
No.
Oh.
We
Okay.
dive down into the steep hill, and there starts our true gravel journey. I mean, we hit some of the gnarliest gravel that we ever have seen.
Now I've
Um,
got photos, so you can plug in a couple. One of my favorite photos from the trip is you coming down that gnarly stuff with your backpack on, zipping
yeah,
past me. Oh, I have that.
yeah. So we were trudging along. Now, just to set up the scene here, we're getting a little late in the afternoon. It's now like 2:30ish. Our
Yep.
hope was to be to camp by 5 or 6 early evening, so we'd have light to set up and everything.
All
But
right.
as we'll tell the viewers here, we'll see how that goes. So it's about 2:30ish. We're starting to run a little low on energy. We're
Yeah.
out in the middle of nowhere. No cell phone reception. The only houses around are basically like what appear to be abandoned trailers with Confederate flags in the window. Like these
Yep.
things look like meth labs.
Right.
They have signs out front, almost all of them, like "Don't tread on me," "Don't come on my property," "I will shoot," that kind of thing. And outside of seeing a few of those, there really was nothing else around for a long time. We were
Right.
out in the middle of nowhere.
It was getting
And
hot
so,
too, if I recall. Getting
what's
hot in the
that?
afternoon.
Yes,
It's
it was
getting
getting
hot out.
hot.
Yeah.
It was getting hot, and it had been a
Drinking.
while since lunch, and we were starting to wear on the energy a little bit.
The low
And
lunch
so
we
we're
had, little lunch we had.
right. So we're in the middle of nowhere, and I'm trying to remember the how the events went down, but we're in the middle of nowhere, and I'm starting to wonder at this point, like, are we going to see another house? When is this adventure going to end for day one? Like, I would really like a break. I could use some food. And just then, like, out of nowhere land, we start hearing voices, like kids' voices, adults' voices, like we're about
Oh,
to
right.
enter into like Disney World.
We're
And
coming down the hill,
literally,
I think, right?
yeah,
We're
we
coming
came
down.
down the hill, and one moment it was
Silent.
nothing around, no
Right.
sound around, nothing but these trailers, and all of a sudden opened up this big
Voices.
whitewater rafting facility,
Right. It was
and there
yellow
were
everywhere.
people everywhere. All of a sudden, there was people everywhere. Regular, just tourists. This is what I imagined the Smokies would be from the very beginning. But regular tourists with kids. There were camp kids there. There were school buses there. Everyone was paying, out the wazoo to go
Right.
whitewater rafting. And we're thinking, like, what the hell is happening right now? And it turns out that we had come
Right.
around and we had gone from kind of the center of the park where there is nothing and come back out around Route 40. And this was right off
Yeah.
Route 40.
Right.
I'm trying to remember what the area was called. Something with an
Town
H.
it was, yeah.
Hampton. It wasn't.
Right.
I forget what the area was called, but it was right off of 40, and it was really like the only thing around, the only commercial center around. There were restaurants there. There was this whitewater rafting there. There were people everywhere because it was right off the
Did
highway.
we pull into the rafting rental place
We
to
pulled
get
into the
some
rafting
water?
rental place, asked some people what
Yep.
it was like.
Where
Field
are
of
we?
dreams. Like, what is this? Where are we? We thought we were like dead and ghosts
Right.
because we just couldn't believe it. It was like heaven. So they say, "Oh, this is blah 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 whitewater rafting. We're right off the highway. The town's
Right.
right down there." And so we proceeded to ride down into town. We find a decent like gas station sandwich place
Right.
right off the highway, and we got some of the best brisket sandwiches.
Brisket.
You
Yeah.
remember
I
those
was just
brisket
going to say it was
sandwiches?
brisket. It
Man,
was so
out
good.
out of nothing being around, we entered this place with brisket sandwiches,
We were
and
starving.
we loaded up on Gatorade and soda, and loaded
Right.
up some provisions for camp that night,
Yep.
and it kind of reset us. And so at this
Right.
point, we're right off the highway, we're right in civilization, we're feeling good. We get some snacks, and we only have about maybe another like 8 to 10 miles left.
So was that
And
around like 4:30 or something like that in the afternoon?
yeah,
I can't-
it was
yeah.
around 4ish.
Four-ish. Yep.
And we're thinking, okay,
Yeah. Another
okay,
hour
8
to
to 10
two, and we'll
miles.
be in camp. Right. By
Yeah, we
6.
just ate a little something. We'll be in camp. We'll have an early night. This is going to be great, right? Actually, do you remember with the brisket sandwiches? We got a couple 40s. We got some tall beers right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
We
yeah.
got some tall beers to go with our brisket sandwiches. We were flying high at this point. Okay.
Yep.
So we say, okay, time to leave. Let's go
Right.
finish out our 8 to 10 miles and be done with this day one.
Right.
Little did we know that this is actually where the adventure was going to start.
Right.
So we go riding off, and if you remember, we ride up this gentle incline, and we pass the junkyard.
Right. On the
Do you remember
right.
what that guy said to us?
No. What did he say?
So the guy in the junkyard, he was talking to someone else, but
It was off to the right before we turned
off
right.
to the right.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was straight out of like Dukes of Hazzard. Like
Yeah.
I can't remember if he had any teeth or not, but if he did, they weren't colored white. And just kind of overalls on, one strap down, kind of like greasy, dirty skin and stuff like that. And
You
I
guys
thought
had it.
he would say something with cyclists, wearing lycra riding past. I thought he was going to say something like derogatory. No, he looks up, hey fellas, have a nice bike ride, have a good day. He was like the friendliest guy you would ever imagine, and it was great. We said hi back, and off we went up this gentle incline. But
Gentle.
before
incline.
we do it, shit really hit the fan.
Yeah.
So we go riding away from the civilian center, away from the highway, away from commercialization, and we go back into the middle of nowhere.
We're on gravel again, straight up the freaking side of the hill, I think, if I recall.
Again, we went back into this super steep incline, super steep decline, except the gravel, they must have just laid this gravel, and it was big, thick gravel. It was like riding through snow. And the hills that you were going up were like, it had to be 12 to 15% grade. At a certain point, I think we walked some of them.
Yeah, I think so.
At this point, our muscles were getting kind of tired, like our calves and our hamstrings were getting tired.
Yeah.
And we were doing our best just to finish this out. So
at
a certain point, I'm starting to wear down. We have what our computers say is another 6 miles or so. And we think lights at the end of the tunnel. I pull over for a quick pee. And we had read about, there's all kinds of wild animals, Black Panthers.
Oh, now I know where you're going. We got on that smooth road through it was like a windy road, like we were in the jungle or something at the top.
We were in the middle of it. We were in the thick gravel at this point. I pulled over to go pee real fast, and I start hearing snorting, like wild boar snorting right on the
I was
end.
up ahead of you. I'm like, where are you? Are you coming? Yeah.
Blaze, I was in the middle of going. I pulled that stuff up. I didn't even care. Like, I pulled it up and hightailed it out of there because I had heard that the wild boars up there are nasty, and I wanted nothing to do with that. And I swear to you, I heard snorting.
It's funny. A friend of mine just went hunting for wild boar in South Carolina. He shot two of them. He shot one through the head and into another one. He showed me a picture of the two wild boar.
Oh my God.
One was 320 pounds. One was 350 pounds. They were huge. I didn't realize they got that big. He goes, yeah, they typically get that
nasty.
big.
They're nasty animals.
Oh.
And I went, do you remember seeing my face coming out of there? I mean, white. I was just hightailing it. So we're doing our best at this point. We're doing kind of like a hike a bike at certain points because it was so steep and we were getting tired. But we finally
I think we went down a really long gravel road after that.
Yeah, it becomes a little more gentle and gliding.
Yeah.
And we start seeing some houses again. I wouldn't even call these houses. They're more like shacks or whatever.
Or bar.
And that's when the wild dog part of the trip started.
Right. Oh, that's right.
We're starting to get a little tired, and we start riding past. We're in the middle of nowhere. Start riding on these houses, and almost every single one just has their dogs just running loose. And these are not nice dogs.
It was more than one. It was like two or three.
They all had 2 or 3 dogs and just chilling out front waiting for something to gnaw on. And they all have prey drives, apparently. And so we're riding past, and they start chasing us. All of these dogs.
I think they were chasing you, and I was behind you, and I'm like, oh, shoot, this isn't good. They might get him, but they're definitely going to get me.
At different points. At one point, you were ahead, and they were chasing me. And then I was ahead, and whatever. The last one I remember, you were slightly ahead. Well, no, we got off our bikes, and and I said, "Blaze, I'm not walking past these dogs."
Put the bike in front of you.
And it was a small dog and a middle dog. And I said, Blaze, I'm not walking past these dogs. And you said, it's okay, in your typical Blaze fashion. I do this all the time. It will be fine. Famous last words before we get eaten. And so we get off our bikes and you say, put your bike between you and the dogs and just tell them no. So that's what we do. We walk past these dogs, put the bikes between us, keep telling them no. They come out and we keep yelling at them, no, no.
They didn't want to go home either. They were like,
they didn't want to go.
Lunch.
They kind of sat down. They were chill for a second. And then they were chill for a second. And then we got on our bike point. And it was at that point where the little fucker, I'm not supposed to say it, the little guy, he was on my wheel. Like, he was getting me, and I really put the pedal to the metal, and although I got away from him, it was at that point I blew out my hamstring because I was dehydrated and tired.
And you were going up a hill. I think you were going up a hill. It was gravel.
And I had really put down the power and blew out my hamstring. And at that point is where things started going really downhill. I said, we got away from the dogs. We were up and over the hill. But I said, Blaze, I need a break. I need to take these salt tabs. I took like 3 different salt tabs because I was just totally cramping up. I said, let's take a break. And off to the left was a stream. And you said, okay, let's take a break. I'm going to go in the stream. I'm going to fill up the water with your cleansing thing. You get some salt tabs. You take a break, and we'll regroup. And at this point, I'm starting to get a little panicky because it's like we're in the middle of nowhere. We may not be able to ride our bikes again, or at least I can't because I can't move my leg. And we have these gnarly hills to ride, and we're in a bad way. So you go into the stream, and you bend over to get some... Tucker, what is it? Oh, Tucker goes. And you go in the stream to get some water, and you let out a shriek. And I said, oh my God. Like, I thought a snake got you. I thought you bent down in the water and a snake bit you. And you had been snake bitten, and with no cell phone, I wasn't about to, like, suck that out of you. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not sucking venom out of you. And I thought you were dead, and I was in the middle of nowhere with wild dogs, and that was the end of the story for us. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I lost my bottle cap. It went down river.
Yes. Exactly. That's why you were yelling, because you lost your bottle cap, not because you got bit by a snake. So, it wasn't the emergency. Tucker. Ooh. It wasn't the emergency. He found his bark last week. Now he likes to use it. It wasn't the emergency that we thought it was, but we weren't in a good way. I really couldn't move my leg very well because I had cramped up. You lost your bottle cap, so you effectively didn't have water at this point.
Right.
The computers say we're like only 5 or 6 miles away from camp, but we're finding it hard to believe because there's nothing.
Right.
So we.
And I'm like, just go slow, take your time. We still have 2-3 hours of light. Right. Don't worry, everything will be all right.
We can take our time. Right. So I'm walking what I can. I ride downhill. I hop on the bike for the downhill to keep up the speed. But most of the uphills I was walking at this point because I just couldn't move my legs. Right. And so we're kind of in a bad way at this point. So we hit more thick gravel, and we're headed up another like 12 to 15% grade.
I remember we passed the house, and I looked, and it was like straight up after that house.
There's nothing around. The computers keep telling us we're close, and there's just nothing around. And I'm about to give up. We're actually starting to look for a place to camp at this point because we're done for the day. Yeah,
that's right. We were like, where can we camp?
And so just over the crest of the hill comes this UPS truck, middle of freaking nowhere. UPS truck comes gliding down the hill.
2-3 hours, we hadn't seen a soul.
Nothing. And so. In the back of my mind, I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to stop this UPS truck, and I'm just going to ask him to take us back to the UPS facility, and I want to be done with this adventure because I'm about to die. Blaze, I thought, was already dead, and that's it. So I
had video of the the UPS conversation.
Yeah. So I wave him down, sure enough, because this was my plan. I wave him down and stop him, and I say, excuse me. We are like deep into our ride here. We're looking for Round Top
campground,
Round Mountain campground.
Right. Can't be that much farther, right? for
are
sure.
going to rest for the night. Our computers say it's about 4 or 5 miles. And he looked back at me and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, son." I'm going to try to get my accent back. "I'm sorry, son. What you're looking for, that's another 10 miles up the hill. And I'll tell you what else, you're going to have to ride 6 miles up Old Rag Mountain to get there." He said, that's at least a 2-3 mile uphill climb, straight uphill, 15% grade or so. It's a nasty one. He said, "Good luck." And so with that, I stopped again for a split second. You had gone up ahead at this point, and you didn't know any of this, but I almost said, "That's it. I'm calling it. Can we hop in the back of your truck?" But
Didn't he say? And I believe the campground might be closed because of bears. Was it
no,
him? No,
no,
that was
no,
later. Okay.
no. He said, "No, that's up Old Rag Mountain, and that's a good 2-3 mile climb up at least 12% grade. That's going to be a tough one." And so I said, "Okay, thank you. Like, just remember us. Just remember that we were out here. If you come by tomorrow and you see our bodies laying on the ground, like, please pick up."
That's when you went into serious panic mode. You came
So
up to me after that.
I caught up with you at the top of the hill. You're riding on in typical Blaze fashion. I finally scream and holler and get you to stop, and I say, "Blaze, it's 5 o'clock. We're in the middle of nowhere. I just talked to the UPS guy. He says we're still a good 6-7 miles away, and the last hill is nasty, like a 2-3 mile climb. I don't think we're going to be able to do this." And so we come up with a plan just to ride downhill as much as we can, ride as much as we can, and get as close as we can to Old Mountain before
I
it
think
gets
we
dark.
stopped at a little bridge over a creek, and then we hung a right, and then we started up a road.
Yeah.
I think.
So we come down a hill, and it starts raining.
Oh,
And
that's
we're
right.
thinking, "Oh my gosh, can this get any worse?" So now we're in the middle of nowhere. We got this nasty climb coming up. We don't have any legs left, and it's pouring on us.
Right.
And we take a sharp hairpin right. The computer
Right.
says turn right. So we take this hairpin right, and all of a sudden the computer's again, beep, 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 off course.
Of course. Right.
Off course, there are no other rights. You told me to go right. There's no other rights. It's raining on me. We're in the middle of nowhere. What the hell are we going to do? Like, all hope was lost. We probably went 50 yards down the road to see if the computer would get back on track. And sure enough, it wouldn't get back on track. And I said, "Blaze, like, this is it. Like, I don't know what else to do." So I said, "Okay, look. Let's ride back down the road that way. There is a gentle kind of right-hand turn. Maybe that's what the computer means. You're turning right, but it was really just more or less the road going straight and bending to the right." Nevertheless, we go back. We get back on the track, and the computer gets on back on track and tells us we're back on course. And we come around this bend. It's now pouring down on us, and we think all hope is lost. It's dark. It's gloomy. And what do we see but this lady in regular, like, workout gear going for a run? It was the only person we had seen for hours at this point who didn't have rabid wild dogs. In normal, like, gear that you would get from Target. Like, nothing else is around. And we go up to her. Do you remember seeing her? Like, it was
I think she had like lime green shorts on. She was jogging, like taking her time, like
run, like
a person, actually.
Like it's like city center. And she looked like an angel to me. And we run up to her, and we say, like, we must have looked just awful at this point. We stop her, and she was kind of shocked because there's no one else around. She wasn't expecting cyclists to come up to her. And we say, "Excuse me, we're in the middle of this ride. We think we're lost. We're trying to get to Round Mountain Round Top Campground. Do you know where that is? Do you know how far away it is? That's where we're camping for the night." And she again looks at us like we're nuts. And she says, "Oh, honey, that's up old Rag Mountain. What is it? Bull Rag Mountain or something. That's up old Rag Mountain up there. That's a good other 6 miles, and that's at least a very steep climb, 2 or 3 miles. that's going to take you all night. That's going to take you a couple of hours at least. And at that point, I don't know about you, but I had totally deflated. I couldn't ride anymore.
It was like 6 o'clock, so we had been going like 11 hours, I think, or so.
It was 6 o'clock. Like evening was going to set in, the sun was going to start setting.
Right.
I was totally deflated, and I just said, "That's enough." And I said, "She said, now my house is right over there. If you need like a glass of water or anything." And I said, "Ma'am, do you think," she had a big like front yard, and I said, would it be possible maybe just to camp in your front yard for the night? Would you mind that? We're not going to make it up this old rag mountain. It's just going to be too steep and too long. We don't have any energy left. We're done. Can we just camp in your front yard? Would you mind? Oh, honey, no, not at all. You can come right in my front yard. You come here. I got to tell Mama and Papa, she said, they live right over here. She said, you come right in our front yard. I got to tell them and Brother Shane, I got to tell them that you're okay and you're going to camp in our front yard so they don't come down here and shoot you. But it will be fine. She said, now, I said, do you know where we are? Like, we have no idea. She said, oh, honey, you're in Del Rio, Tennessee. She said, it's just a bit of a village. It's really just our family. So my brother Shane, he lives right up there over yonder. And he's the law here in Del Rio. He's also a volunteer fireman. And we got Mima and Papa right over here. They're our neighbors. Those are my parents. And my sister lives right up there on top of the hill. And that's pretty much Del Rio, Tennessee. There's not much around these parts. Nope. So we say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. We go into her front yard and we're just kind of like getting our bearings.
Yep.
And we
set up the tents. I think we have water.
We bring out the brisket sandwiches and the tall beer, and she goes and tells the family that we're there, so no one shoots us. And so then she comes out a little while later. She says, "Now listen, we have some electricity over at the pool there." She had a pool in her front yard. We have some electricity over at the pool. And you can plug in, if you need to plug in your gadgets and recharge everything, you can plug in right over there to make yourself at home. Let me know if you need any dinner or any water.
Wasn't her husband was still at work? He said, my husband will be back in a while or something.
Husband Chris, he was at baseball with the son.
Oh, okay.
And they had a daughter, and she was practicing basketball out in the front yard. Mm-hmm. And so we set up camp, and I go over, and I go back up to the front door and knock on the front door. I say, excuse me. I'm really sorry to bother you. You've already given us so much just letting us camp here. But do you know if there are any Ubers around that might be able to take us back to our cars? And she just laughed. She said, oh, honey, we don't have any Ubers out here in Del Rio, Tennessee. We don't even have any taxis. No, I'm sorry. We don't have anything that will take you back to where you came from. You might have to ride out of here. Right. So I go back to Blaze, and he's setting up his tent and everything. And I'm sitting there eating my brisket sandwich, and I say, Blaze, I don't think there's going to be a day two. I think this is it, and we need to find a way out of here. We need to find a way back to our cars. And we're at the farthest point now because we're about halfway in our ride almost. So we're 40 miles away from our cars. Right. And I said, we need to figure out a way to get our cars. So at that point, the nicest people in the world, Nicole, who had taken us in, she calls her sister over. She calls Brother Shane over to try to formulate a plan to save us. And Mima and Papa have come out of the house now, and they're all in on it too. So it's a big, happy family. Like, we're trying to game plan, trying to get us.
And everybody's calling everybody to see if anybody has a car that could drive these two crazy guys somewhere over the mountain.
Brother Shane, God bless him. Nicole. So it turns out that Nicole and her sister are emergency room nurses.
Yeah.
They are college educated. They have nice incomes. They're professionals. They work about an hour and a half away.
Johnson City, I think, is where she had to go.
City at the nearest hospital. And she's telling us she has a Peloton where she usually does her workout. I'm like, we're in the middle of nowhere. We find the only house with an ER nurse that has a Peloton. Like, what the hell?
Who's going into work at like 4:30 in the morning? I think she said something crazy.
So we're trying to figure it out, and she says, Brother Shane, he's a firefighter. And
he knows everybody.
He's going to call all his firefighting buddies to see if someone would be willing to take you back to your cars.
Right.
I said, we have $60 cash between us. We will pay whoever can take us back to our cars $60. Here's the cash. Just find us someone. And so they're calling around. Now, at this point, the sun is starting to set. It's starting to get dark.
It's like an hour or two goes by, and one by one they come back and say, nope, he's here. Nope, he's not available.
He called that guy. He can't do it. He has to be up at work in the morning. He can't do it. He has to go in tonight. He's got family, whatever. And so then Shane says, all right. Oh, so first Shane comes over. And he comes over and he gets out of his truck, and we're like, oh, good gosh. Like, Shane looks like he could possibly beat us up or whatever. And we're in the middle of nowhere, and he looks over at us, and Nicole tells him what's going on. He looks over at us, puts his hand on his chin like this, shakes his head. He looks at us, and he goes, boys? Seems like you boys are in a pickle. And right then and there, I thought for sure we were dead. I thought it was going to be a shakedown. He was going to take us for everything that we were worth.
Boys are in a pickle. Yep, I remember.
Boys are in a pickle. Couldn't have been any more opposite. Nicest guy in the world. The nicest family in the world. Just totally what you would not imagine in like backcountry Tennessee. So nicest people in the world. So then Shane says, how about this? The sister's husband was in the state police, I think, or he was a park and rec or
park ranger, right?
Park ranger. And so she called him to see if the park rangers would
come get us. Right, that's right.
Rangers. So they make a call to the Pisgah Park Rangers. Pisgah Park Rangers say, nope,
you're out of the park.
In the park. They're technically out, they're just on the other side of the street from the park. So they're not
like half a mile away.
Do you remember what they said?
No.
They said they cycled into the mess. They can cycle out of the mess. That's what they told us. So we were outside the park jurisdiction. They wouldn't come help us. The firefighters couldn't come help us. The police couldn't come help us. And so we were really stranded. It's now
like 9 o'clock at night. Yeah.
And we small talk with Papa.
We were chatting with him. He was funny.
Papa was so funny. We were talking to him. He had a job for a year in one of the clothes industries for 35 years. He was retired, still living in Little Del Rio, Tennessee.
He was funny.
He's looking for a fun night out. He's like, he starts. Now you guys can come over to the front porch. We can pull out some of the alcohol. We can swap stories. You guys come over. We'll have a hell of a time. Papa was ready to party. We may have been a little stressed, but he was ready to go. It was Papa was looking for some fun. He was swapping stories. He was like, it seemed to us like his family probably shut his stories off 10 years ago, and he was just looking for someone new to tell his stories to, and he found those people. He found his audience. So he was all excited. So he was starting to set up shop to party all night long. We're thinking, how the hell can we get out of this mess and get back to our cars? And it's like 10 o'clock at night now. And we're resigned. And if you remember, Nicole and her sister, ER nurses, had to get up at like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
So they're like, we got to get up. We got to go to sleep and get up in a few hours to get ready for work. Like, we can't do anything. Your cars are in Kikuchi or whatever
I think we were in North Carolina. We were across the state border, over two mountain ranges or something like that.
It was an hour away on small, windy roads. And she said, we can't take you back. Shane's got to get up early for work. We all have to get up early for work. I'm sorry, you're welcome to tent in our front yard.
So we're ready to throw in the towel at this point.
Yeah, she said,
we're not going anywhere.
And get back to it tomorrow. Maybe we can call some people tomorrow. But that's it. We've called everyone we know. And so we go back to our tents, and we're kind of deflated, and we're starting to come up with our plan to get out of this mess tomorrow. And sure enough, it's like 10:30 at night now, and we see Brother Shane and Nicole and the sister kind of powwowing in the front yard about what to do with these two strangers in the front. And they come over, Nicole comes over, and she says, boys, hop in the car. we're going to take you back to your cars. And we're like, hold on, what did you say? She said, we're going to take you back to your cars. We're going to get you rescued. We cannot leave you here stranded overnight. It's just, we can't do it. And we're going to get you back to your cars. So God bless them. It's 10:30 at night, 11 o'clock at night. And we hop in the back of their van to go an hour or more down the road back to our cars. They had to get up at 4:30 in the morning to go to work. God bless their souls. And we get in the back of this car. Now, part of me is like, these are the nicest people in the world about to save my life. Another part of me is like, okay, we're in the back of a strange van in the middle of nowhere at 11 o'clock at night. Like, what is going to happen to us? So, do you remember that car ride?
Oh, yeah. It was uncomfortable a little bit. I mean, we were trying to do small talk with the brother, Shane, and stuff, and we're like in the middle of nowhere. It's like dark.
Oh,
bumpy roads, we're bouncing around in truck, and
in the middle of nowhere, windy roads. And Shane's telling us all the story. Now we passed. Do you remember passing over the river? And the boys had their flashlights, and they were like trying. Oh no, he said, "Do you know what those boys are doing?" And we said, "Are they trying to catch like fish or something?" It's pitch black at midnight.
Right.
Oh no, those boys down there are coon hunting. He said, "Now coon hunting's a good time," and we're looking at each other like, what does he mean by that? What does he mean? He said, oh, no, coon hunting's a great time. You go looking for raccoons when it's pitch black, and you go down there in the holler, and you can get yourself some nice raccoon. He said, that's what they're doing. They're not fishing. He said, I just went coon hunting with my buddies about a week or so ago. We caught ourselves a nice raccoon, brought it back to the house. We fried it up. Oh, fried raccoon, something else, with have a nice beer with it. Do you remember that conversation? And we're just looking at each other like, dude, like, what the? So he said, yeah, you get yourself a nice raccoon. It makes for a nice dinner.
Yeah.
And we go through the small little, like, village where the fire department is. Now, there's a fire department. That's where I work. And that bar right down the street, that's someone's bar. And that's where we go. They make a nice steak. They have a nice steak dinner there. And we just went for our anniversary a few weeks ago, and it's a hell of a meal, I'll tell you. Nicest place for 40 miles at least. Yeah. And so they're going back and forth, and it was funny at one point. What did we say? We got into talking about colleges or something. She said, "Now I bet you boys don't think we're educated, but we actually are. We went to." Where did she go to school? Like University, like Satellite University of Tennessee or University of Memphis or something?
Eastern Tennessee, maybe? I don't know.
It was one of the smaller schools. But she said, yeah, we're nurse, we're graduating. We have a college degree. I think she might have even had a graduate degree. Yeah. We went away for college and came back to Little Del Rio, Tennessee. And this is where our family is. And this it was a nice, lovely, shocking, surprising conversation about it just goes to show you have certain stereotypes. You expect certain things out of people. And it was totally the opposite. Nicest, sweetest people, educated people, just totally different from what you expect. And they
spent their whole evening going out of their way to help us, like trying everything.
Finally get back. They knew after we had described where we were, they knew exactly where our cars were parked.
Long ways away.
I don't know about you. I felt like an ass because they're taking us back to, like, we had our BMW sitting there, and it was like, dear God, like, we just looked like the biggest city slicker schnubs. And they take us back to our cars, and we get back maybe 12:30 in the morning to our cars, and it's another hour hike all the way back to their house. And we follow them back to their house, and we probably get back to the house 12:31 in the morning. They had to get back up for work at 4:30 in the morning.
Probably got 3 hours sleep that night.
Yeah, I go back up to her before she went in the house for bed, and I said, listen, here's all the cash we have. It was like $60, $70. She didn't want the cash. She said, are you ridiculous? No, sir. It was our pleasure to take you back to the cars. You don't worry about it a bit. I said, no, you're taking the cash. Like, that's where I drew the line. Like, you are the nicest people. You're going to take the money for gas, for everything else. They drove all the way out there. And so, sure enough, we go back in our tents. They go to sleep. We heard them wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go to work. Man. God bless their souls. Nicest people. We wake up the next day, and we drive back to town and get a little breakfast at a local place.
To the brisket shack. I think we went back to the same area there.
We went to where the whitewater rafting was.
Right, yeah.
right
Had a
off the
great
highway.
breakfast
We get a nice
on the
breakfast.
deck. Yep.
And just look at each other like, what the hell just happened to us? Like, how did we survive that? How did we find the only person in the middle of nowhere that was a professional with a Peloton in her house,
Right.
and just the nicest person in the world? We had to have. Oh, do you remember what else Shane told us in the car? He said, "Where were you going to camp tonight?" And we told him Round Mountain, and he said, "Oh, you would not want to camp out around Mountain right about now." He said, "It's bear country right now. It's full of bears." He said, you boys had your brisket sandwiches. They would have been on you like white on rice. You wouldn't have been making it out of that campground. And we just they saved our lives, Blaze. We would have been eaten. We would have been their brisket sandwich.
Yeah, it's funny. And then you headed off when you went back to Huntsville to pick up your son.
Yeah,
right?
I went back to Huntsville to get my son from Spain.
And I went back to Abington, Virginia to ride the Creeper Trail again because I loved it so much on the way down. So I rode the Creeper Trail twice in like 2 weeks. It was so nice.
Well, so bringing it back to what we're doing this summer, we never got our second 40 plus miles in because Hank and Blaze almost died on that trip. But we can say we've been to Del Rio, Tennessee. We can say we met Mima and Papa and the nicest family in the world. We have an adventure to tell. We have a great story to tell. And we made it out alive somehow. But
that'll be engraved in my mind for the rest of my life. That trip was just like, phew, so cool.
Salt tabs. I cannot recommend salt tabs highly enough. They got me out of that.
I think I'll be on pickle juice this next trip.
Yeah. So I think we can take some lessons for that for the pants ride, but yeah. I think the pants ride it has the potential to be just as, if not more, epic.
I think so, definitely, for sure.
Hopefully we finish it this time.
Cool. So next week we have the tasting going on, right?
Taste test next week. Yep. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Remember to watch part 1 of this video for the setup to that story, and that has all the video. And the reason we didn't take video in the back part was because I was panicking that we were going to have a medical emergency, and I didn't want it captured on video. So there was no video of the second part.
And it wasn't going to be me having a heart attack. It was you having a panic attack.
Yeah, probably. And a bunch of dogs just chasing us. So anyway, next week we have the epic taste test. I can't wait to taste this Poor Pappy's. I'm really excited. And watch part 1 and 2 of this series. Watch last week's episode of Jake and Andy visiting us.
That was fun.
It seems like these episodes are only getting better and better as we go. So
Yep. So great.
Thanks for joining us today. And make sure you tune in next week. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Blaze, until next week.
Alrighty.
Adios.
Have a great week.
Peace
See
out.
y'all.